It's February 7th, and this is Patrick Halstead at Qdabra. We try to bring you these webinars once a week, and our goals are to be relevant, be timely. Obviously, we know your time is valuable. We're only going to spend hopefully 20 minutes. So I've got a quick webinar for you this morning. We're showing you real stuff, and this we hope to be a nugget, an on-ramp to more knowledge for you, and we're available. If you have questions, please don't hesitate. In the webinar, just for those who have joined us for the first time, there is a question area in the GoToWebinar tool, and you can lodge your question there. I will take questions at the end, and we've got a bunch of things to talk about today. First of all, the advertisement. We're your InfoPath gurus. We're here to help. We have a community, the most popular community on the web, where we guarantee 90% response. We monitor this community every week, so if you want some free help, support, don't hesitate to post your questions there. We will get to them, or someone else might. We also provide ASAP support if you can't wait, and you can click on that link when you get the web pack at the end of the webinar. We'll ask you to fill out a quick survey form, and we'll send you this PowerPoint presentation. If you have a consulting project and don't have time, we also provide help with your consulting projects. We have tools and templates to help you get unblocked if you need a quick fix or to just jumpstart your project yourself. And we do provide money-back guarantees for all of our products and services. With our web services, we allow you to scale your solution to make it more real-world. If you need to collect hundreds of thousands, millions of data from your users, you can use our web services to plug the gaps in SharePoint and SQL and InfoPath. And then finally, if you're wondering if you're really doing it the right way and you want to get some advice, we have a master class, and we have one starting on March 4th. I'm going to be doing that one. It's inexpensive, and it's online, and we do 5 days, 5 hours a day. Be happy to have you join us. Okay, that's the advertisement. So what are we talking about today? Well, what I'd like you to take away are these very, very, very simple topics or techniques. First of all, in InfoPath, there's 4 types of images. I'm going to show you what those are. And then I'm going to talk about 2 best practices involving images or pictures. In the InfoPath UI, they're not called images, they're called pictures. So the webinar title today was a little bit strange. So anyway, we're going to refer to them as images and pictures. So the first type of image is the picture image. It's just inserted in your view. And what you do is you go into Insert, click on the picture, and you can see that I've added that right here. So this is an image that I would get when you go to Insert and you do this. It's going to ask you what image you want to put in there. It's going to copy the image into your form template, which means it lives in the view. Now this is good because if you're using an email-based form or something that needs to be offline, the image will travel with the form. The downside is that there's an issue with duplication I'm going to go over in the next section, and it can cause increases in size, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. The second type of image, picture control, is a link. So what you do with this is you basically, like you normally do, you put your cursor in your InfoPath form template. You're designing it. I'm in the designer right now. You can see I've added an image already, but if I didn't have that, I would go into the controls here, and I would select the image right here, picture. Now when I do that, it's going to ask me if I want a link or if I want to include it in the form. Now in this case, I've chosen to make it a link. And you can see here, when I add that to my view, it'll automatically add a field element to my data source here on the right. Now I've gone in and I've renamed these. This data element is a little bit different than when it's data. So when it's a link, it has the field where the link exists. Now you can see here I have a default value to a link on my website. And it also has a screen tip underneath it, so that when I preview the form and I hover over it, you can see that screen tip show up there. Okay, so that's a link, and you can use the picture control. And the benefit of the link, first of all, it's data. You need to set the default value if you want it to show on load. The benefit is that it's lightweight. The link is all that exists in the form. You don't have the data. You don't have the duplication problems. And the downside, of course, is that you have to be online. You can't be offline, disconnected to get to the link. You could be disconnected from your intranet site if the link were on a public site. So that's the second type of image. The third type is using the same control, but now what we're going to do is we're going to add data to it. We're going to make it part of the data. And you can see here that in the link case, the data type for the link is a hyperlink. The data type for the picture control as data is actually base 64, which is how InfoPath encodes an image. It encodes it as plain text in order to encode an image as plain text, because images are usually binary. You have to do base 64. And I see a bunch of questions, and I just want to make sure that you guys can see my screen here. That's the concern here. So let's just check real quick here. Only see the presentation slide. Well, that's no good. Let's try this again here. Okay. Thanks for your hands, and sorry about that. I'm just going to go over this one more time here. If you can see this now, the InfoPath form, can you please raise your hand just so I make sure that I'm doing this right? We don't have an assistant this morning, so I'm doing this all myself. Appreciate your patience. Thank you. So Juan can see this. Okay, so let's just check the questions one more time here to make sure that everyone is seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, great. And I'll come back to the questions at the end. I'm just going to monitor that from time to time just to make sure you're not missing anything. So once again, there are 4 types of images, pictures in InfoPath. The first type is this one on top here. The way you get to this is you click on Insert, and you click on Picture, and you can insert a picture from your machine, right? That picture is going to live in your form. So the benefit there is that if it's offline, or if you have a form that is disconnected, then you can see the image. This lives in your form, so it lives in the view. It's part of the package that comprises your form template. The downside, of course, is that there's a gotcha when you're using images in multiple views or multiple places in your view, and it duplicates them. And I'll talk about that more in a second. The second type of picture is the picture control as a link. And this picture control is one of the controls. You just go down, you put your cursor in your InfoPath form template as you're designing it, and you choose the picture control. It's going to give you an option here to insert it as a link or include it in the form. For the second type, I've included it as a link. And the benefit here is that it's lightweight. Only the link is carried with the form. There's not a lot of data. It's just a link to an image that's stored somewhere else, for example, a website. Obviously, you need to be connected to see it, and that's the main downside. And then the same control can be used to add data. And here, what I've done down below in the number 3, the third row, is I have chosen that same picture control, and instead of using a link, I've chosen to include it in the form. Now, whenever you add a control to your InfoPath form, it's going to add a field to your data source here on the right. And you can see for the link, it adds a field with an attribute underneath it. And now I renamed this. It's going to add field 1, field 2. So I've renamed it to make it meaningful. And I've added some default data, and that's the link that you see there. That's a logo on our InfoPath Dev website. The screen tip is what you see when you preview it. So if I preview this sample form now, you can see if I hover over it, you can see that screen tip show up. Now I can also click and insert a new link, but I've got that default data there. Okay. When you're including the picture as data in your form, you don't have the screen tip, and you're not able very easily to add default data. But as you can see here, I actually have default data there, and of course I can replace it by searching for another image. The benefit of the data in the form is it travels, of course, with the form, but that means that it will drag down or it will weigh down your form if it's a big image. You can't drag and drop the images into your form, and it's hard to add as default data. What I've done here to get this default data to show up for this picture where the data is in the form, you see that forms board there, what I've done here to do that is I've actually added a default data XML file. So I have a secondary data source that I've added that is the default data, and that includes an image. And then what I do on load is I just copy that image from my default data represented in base 64 to the main form. Now, how do you create the default data file? Well, that's as easy as simply saving your preview here, filling in an image, saving it as XML, and then re-importing the same XML into your form. So let me just show you how you do that. Let's just change this. What we're going to do here is we're going to go into the preview. We're going to change the image to something else. I have an InfoPath icon here. I'll use that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to save this file here. We're just going to do File, Save As. Now we're in preview. So we're going to save the XML as default data. I'll just call it default data 2. Okay? And then what you do is you come back into your form and you go to the data connections and you add that XML file, default data 2, there it is, to your form. And I've already done this once, so it's automatically going to add it, and everything should map correctly. So you can see there that it's copying that new image in. Isn't that clever how we did that? So you can add default data for images that you want to add to your form in that fashion. Okay, the final image type is rich text. So if you have a rich text control, and we just added this once again by going to Home and adding a control from the Controls section in the ribbon. You can see here we have rich text. Where is it? It's right on top, right there. It's the second one in. So you add that rich text control to your form. You can see here it's rich text. Now, there's a trick here, and that is that if you're in the browser, what you have to do is you have to change your form to be filler, because this does not work in the browser. Images in rich text are not supported when you're in a browser-based form, which means most of you could care less about this last one. But I just want to show it for completeness. Now what I've done here is I've changed the form to be a filler form, and then what you do is you right-click and you go into the button properties and you make sure that you've got this embedded images checked. You won't see these options if the form is configured for the browser. Let me show you. Compatibility is set to browser, which is the default for you most of the time. You right-click on this, and you can see we do not have that option anymore. We can still enable it for rich text, but you can see here the warning. Okay. Okay, so those are the 4 types. Now let me just show you this last type though when we're actually running with it live. So if I run with it live like this, of course I can't add an image. I have to go back and change it to filler, and then of course right-click and make sure that my options are correct. They are. Now if I preview it, what I can do is I can add some text here, and I can go into my paintbrush here. I can just paint it from above. I can just copy it from here probably. Let me just try that. Copy, paste. See how it embeds the image in the rich text there. That's pretty cool if you haven't seen that technique before. Okay, those are the 4 techniques. Any questions on those so far? Once again, if you're just joining us, we are happy to have you here today. We're talking about pictures and images in InfoPath. We've got 4 different types. I've just gone over those. I'm going to talk about the pitfalls next. And with this sample form, what I've done is I've added the pitfalls to the second screen, one of them actually. I've got a bunch of forms here. I'm going to talk about 2 pitfalls. I'm going to talk about the first one, though, and then I'm going to switch to another form to show you the second one. So the first major pitfall with InfoPath is with this image that you add to your view. So here you can see I had this image that I just copied into my view. And what I've done on my second view is I just copied it here. So what I did was I just went in to my first view. It's easy to do this. You just right-click, copy, right? And then you go into your second view. Actually, let's do it for the, well, let's just leave it like that, I guess. So we copied it to the second view, and we just copied it like that. Just Control-V or right-click, paste, okay? Now, when you do this, it's not actually referring to the same image. And this is what gets you. And I'm going to respond to the questions here in a second, Cynthia and Catherine. Just give me 1 second, okay? I appreciate your patience. So what I want to show you, though, is what is actually happening. And in order to do that, what we have to do is we have to export this file as source files. If you haven't done this before, there's a little-known option underneath Publish, which is called Export Source Files. When you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to ask you for a folder. And since I've already done this once in preparation, I'm just going to pick another. I'm just going to type in another folder here, and I'm going to use that. Now, when you do this, it's going to expand all of your InfoPath files, everything that's in that template is going to put in this folder. So you can see these are all the files that make up my InfoPath template. Now, I want you to ignore everything except for the top three. You see how we've got 3 images on top? Well, guess what? They're all the same. They're all Qdabra. Why is that? It's because whenever you copy a picture from one part of your view to another view, it duplicates it. We don't like this because if the image is very large, it will cause your template to become larger and larger and larger. And if you've ever done this, and you see you might have 100 or so different images, it's a huge gotcha. So how do you fix it, right? That's what you really want to know. Well, I've got in my sample here, my second sample, let me bring this up. My second sample that I've got, I think, is the one that has the explanation. So I just want to make sure that that's the case. Okay, let me switch back to the right view. Okay, so what I've done here is I've added instructions for what you're going to do with the gotcha. So what you're going to do is you're going to export source files out. You're going to look in the folder to see if you've got duplicates. Make sure you close the form. Let's do that. You're going to, well, I'll leave this one open because this is a separate one. So we'll look in the folder. Here's the folder that we just created, source 2. And this has these 3 images, right? So then what's the next step? The next step is to identify the duplicates, then right-click and edit all the XSL files except the upgrade. So the XSL file is the view. So here's the first view. That's view 1. Pitfalls and solutions, that's view 2. So that's where I want to replace it, right? So what I have to do here is I want to identify which image is the original one. Go to details. You can see here that the one I added 758 this morning, that PNG file is the most, let's just call that the original. That's 58DC-B2E1, right? Now, what you want to do here is you have to type in, you're going to have to copy this name. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into that view. We're going to edit it in Notepad. I know you're thinking you're crazy. You don't have to use Notepad. You can use whatever you're familiar with. I just use the lowest common denominator. You can tell how old school I am. And what we're going to do is we're going to search for those other images. So you can see here the other ones are 17B, just a 17B. And what you'll do is you'll find this image. Where is it here? And you're just going to replace it with the original, just like that. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing for the B70. It's right underneath it, which was what we'd expect, since we just add one after the other. Okay, now I've done this. I'm going to save it. And then what I'm going to do is you have to remove them, you have to go into the manifest and make one more change. So we have to open this up with Notepad as well, and you can see here at the very top of the manifest is where we have all the files. This is truly the manifest for the form template. We need to go in here and remove those image files. You can see them down below. Here's the first one. When you remove these, just make sure that you use the, you've got a closing tag and an opening tag for the file. I know this is not something that you're going to like doing. We're going to have a tool available to do this in a week or two. So I've done this. I'm going to save it. And now what I can do is I can delete these extraneous images from my package. And in order to reopen the form in the designer, I right-click the manifest. And you can see here we still have those two images. If I save source files now again to a new folder, called source 3, you can see, let's just navigate to source 3, it's to prove to you that indeed we are now only using one image for those 3 that appear in the form. Now once you've done that, you can then file save this as an XSN file and you're back in business, right, without the large size of the previous one. So let me just sort of do source 3 here, and then we can compare those file sizes. And you can see that if I go into details view and go to date, you can see that the XSNs here, the one I just saved is source 3 at the bottom. That's 35 KB. The one before it was 53. Okay, so that's the second technique. Any questions on that, please add them. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, so then we've got the final issue. Actually, I'm just showing you 2 pitfalls today. So there's the final pitfall is the images that exist in your form that are really large. So you've got an image you want to get from your users. You want them to add the image. So you're using, once again, you're using the third type of the control, which is called the picture control with data, or as data. So this is not the link. This is just the picture control. So when you add this in your form, and you preview it, of course they can add a big image here. They can go search off, find a 5 megabyte image, right? And you're thinking, well, 5 megabyte image, that is not going to transfer across the internet very quickly. Right, so how do you improve the performance? Well, there's 2 techniques to do it, and they both involve writing code. But thankfully, we have a third-party add-on that we use, a plugin, very popular plugin for InfoPath called QRules, which will solve the problem. And so there's 2 techniques. One is you can reduce the size of the image. In other words, you can change the image from a really large image. You can scrunch it down. The second technique is to convert the image into a link. In other words, upload the image to a picture library and convert it into a link. And that's what I want to show you here in this last example. And those are the instructions right there. You can see here that we're going to add an XTP. For those of you who aren't familiar with XML template parts, they're an easy way to add functionality to your form. You build them outside of the InfoPath. Well, you build them with the InfoPath Designer, but they're not templates, normal templates. They're actually template parts, which means that you can reuse them in all of your forms. And we have one of those template parts that we will be including in this, those goodies, the freebies that we send out with this. And I'm going a little bit over on the webinar. I'm almost done, though. Let me just try to wrap this up real quick. So the way you do this is you just have a, let's say you have your form, blank form, and you're going to get our XTP, and you're going to add this XTP to your form. And this is going to basically allow you to add images to your form and convert them into links. So you would have a form already there, and you'd find a place in your form to add this control. Then you would go into the control section in your ribbon, and you don't have the XTP yet, so you have to add it. So you're going to click on Add or Remove Controls, and there's an option here to add the XTP. You're going to search for that XTP that you get with our package today, and you're going to add it. When you do that, it's going to be called you're going to see it in your controls down here at the bottom. And the name of it is going to be Picture Perfect. There it is. To add it to your form, all you have to do is place your cursor where you want to add it, and then select it, and then boom, you get it, right? So this XTP, I'm going to show you this XTP, but it has some red text in it. So basically, it's got a bunch of controls for adding images, for expanding and collapsing the image, so you can have a nice thumbnail, and then it has some red text here, though, that you have to do a little bit of configuration after you add it. And I've already done that, and for the purpose of brevity here, I'm just going to switch to the, we've done this many, many times. Many of you have already seen this demo, but I'm just going to show you what it looks like after you've done the fix-ups, the config. And what we've got here is really, obviously, you would have this embedded in your form. We're going to add a simple image here, background, our latest background. And we just click the upload button. And what it's doing now is it's actually uploading the image, the big image, to SharePoint. We've got a pictures library in SharePoint. And then, you know, you've got this as a link. So it no longer does it exist in the form as a huge piece of data. And it's this link that you can expand, collapse. So it works really nicely when you're on the iPad or you've got a mobile application and you don't want to obviously need code in the form to do this. So Sebastian, I know you're with the Formotus, one of our very respected partners out there on the mobile front. Formotus helps you get your forms out to the iPhone and to the Android and to the Windows Surface phones as well as tablets. That application doesn't support Q rules, but I'm going to talk about another technique in a second that does from those applications. So I'm really talking about InfoPath Filler and the browser form in SharePoint. And you can use this in the browser or the filler. You have that nice picture control. Now, if it's in the browser, that means that you can view it from your mobile device. You won't get all the rich client features that Formotus offers, but you can do this hide and show. Okay, so let's take a look at the picture library. I know you're thinking, where did that thing go? I want to know. So let's just take a look at my pictures library here on SharePoint. I'm just going to refresh this, and you can see that there's the image. I just upload it to the pictures library. If I save this form as XML, and open it up in Notepad, I just want to show you this real quick because this will show you, this will prove beyond a doubt that we indeed, there it is, we indeed are not storing the image in the XML. There you see it right there. That's the library I just opened. Okay, so, and that's a very small file, as you can tell. Just to try to close this guy out here so you can see the size there is just 2 KB. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my presentation and take questions. So once again, 2 best practices for those pitfalls. One is when you're duplicating your images, make sure you know that you're duplicating them by occasionally exporting as source files, and then follow those techniques I talked about to reduce the duplication, reduce the size of your XSN. Second pitfall is the image itself being really large, taking a long time to upload. Upload it in advance when they're filling out the form and convert it into a link. You can use Q rules to do that. With our XTP, you can download Q rules trial for free. It'll work with the XTP just fine. Or you can use our web service. We're working on a web service change, actually an idea that Sebastian had at Formotus. Great idea, great engagement. Thank you very much. We're going to add this web service to web method to our web service that extracts the images and saves them. So you don't have to have client-side code. Okay, those are the demos. Any questions? I've got a lot of questions to go through. I'm just going to go through and top down here. So once again, I appreciate your patience with me this morning. Obviously, the first set of questions were all about not being able to see my screen. Sorry about that. So I'm going to just scroll all the way down here to the bottom. And we've got a question from Cynthia. I'm sorry, Catherine. When you use picture control enabled, is that best for repeating the picture on multiple views? Let's see. I'm not quite sure I understand that question. Let me see if I can go back to the sample that I've got and see if I can figure it out. Okay, so we're talking about picture control enabled. So I'm guessing that you mean when the data is in the control. When you're adding a repeating control, don't forget that you need to use a group that is not repeating as your parent. And this is a best practice. Let's just call this. And what you're going to do is add another picture underneath this. Now this is not going to be, okay. You want to have a repeating group here, and then you want to add the picture underneath this. So in this case, we would say picture element, whatever, and we pick the picture here. And you can see here how it exists here underneath repeating group. You do not want to make this repeating. Don't do this. This is a bad practice. I don't have time to explain why. Just don't do it. It's going to make your life miserable in the future. Do it this way. Have a group, a repeating group, and the picture underneath it. And then you can just drag this over to your form, and you can have a repeating table with those images in it. And that control can be either a link or an image. Hopefully that answers your question, Catherine. And then we have a question from Kevin. Thanks for joining us today, Kevin. It's great to have you here again. If I have the same linked image on multiple views, will the image pull in once on load or each time a new view is selected? I believe the answer is once on load. So it should not, well, the caveat is with the browser-based forms, you might see a delay. I think the browser-based forms have an optimization in them, but if you're using filler, it's once on load. If you're using the browser, it's going to be once per view, I think. 90% confident on that one. Last question then from King Elder. Nice to have you back, King. With your Picture Perfect XTP, is the thumbnail displaying the large image but just scaled down? Correct. It's the same one. Now we do have in QRules a function to auto-scale your images down. You guys are familiar with Photoshop and Paint where you can resize the image. Well, we have a command in QRules that allows you to do that. So you can create those thumbnails in a small format as well if you want. But in this case, what I've done is I just changed the size of the display. So it's actually just a link because it's not storing it in the form, and it's just scaled down. Does that answer your question? Hopefully that does. Once again, I want to thank everyone for joining me today. Last but not least, we do have, don't forget to send us your feedback, and we'll send you the package. And then finally, we do have online training coming up, and that's March 4th. 5-hour sessions, wonderful value for you. We've got all kinds of content, and you're going to get QRules for free if you go to the class. So if you already have a QRules license, we'll give you another year for free, or 2. So it's a great deal. Don't hesitate to take advantage of that wonderful offer. You can send email to coursemanager@qdabra.com. Once again, that's coursemanager@qdabra.com, or you can just put it as a comment in your feedback form. We would love to have you. And once again, don't forget, if there's anything we can do, please, thanks a lot, Tom, for recommending it. Now, Brian had a question as well, so I just see this last question. Sorry about that, Brian. So you're currently using MOS 2007. We'll be migrating to 2013. You need to have a project. It needs to be done immediately to replace Access, right? Let's see here. Replace Access DB forms that are used as CRUD interface for multiple lists in MOS. The fix for this will be done in 2010 and then migrate. Okay, I'll email you. Thanks for that shout out. I thought that was a question. Sorry for making that public. Once again, thanks to everyone for having me. We'll send the link to the webinar video as well as the package. Don't forget feedback forms or else you're not going to get the package. And contact me if you want to send email to us. It's just support@qdabra.com, or if you have my email, or coursemanager@qdabra.com, or you can just go to our webpage and find contact information there. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks again. Next week, we'll be talking about attachments, same kind of techniques for attachments. We've got, actually, there's a couple of different pitfalls for attachments. We'll talk about those. There's some cool tools out there for attachments as well. So we hope to have you back here in a week. Have a great day.